we go. What a day. Breaking just moments ago, U.S. economy shrinking for the second straight quarter. That means a recession is well underway.
We are looking within a few months at a major food shortage.
Inflation in the U.S. is the highest it's been in 4 decades. And new numbers out today give no reassurance it will let up soon.
So you've all seen the headlines like at the beginning of this video, and I just wanted to do a short video and talk about a 5-step survival planning guide that you can use to keep yourself from paranoia. You know, we want to be prepared, but we don't want to be paranoid. And the difference between being prepared and being paranoid is planning. And I have a 5-step simple plan that I use in all the issues of life just to help myself think through it and plan it out. That's what I'd like to share with you this morning on this video. Now, if you have a different process you go through, please put that down in the comments below. If you would change this plan, or if you would add to it or take away from it, put that down in the comments below. Let me know how you think about being prepared to keep yourself from being paranoid. And if you would like this video and hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, that way you get notified whenever any content like this gets put out, and it greatly helps the channel to put out more content like this to help others. So planning is just about logically thinking through what you need to accomplish based on what you see going on in the world around you. And so you see the reports out there of inflation and food shortages, that we've entered into a recession, and then there's the possibility of a depression. Nobody really knows whether we're headed toward a depression or not, but there's always a possibility of it. And so we have to be prepared and yet keep ourselves from being paranoid. And that's where this little 5-step plan in your thinking comes in, to help you separate truth from fiction and to help you use your time and your resources wisely so that you're prepared and not getting off into paranoia. You know, paranoia is simply anxiety and fear that wells up inside you because of the unknown. And so what we want to do with this 5-step plan is make things known to you, and that way you can move forward in preparedness and have more calm assurance about the future. So let's get into it. So step number 1 is simply to identify and evaluate. One of the big steps in keeping yourself from paranoia but keeping yourself prepared is simply to identify a problem. So you hear stories about food shortages and possible shortages of water and things like that, and you say, hey, I might want to be prepared to have some emergency water. And so you identify that problem. And then along with identifying that problem, you simply evaluate the possible solutions. And so water, for instance, if you think there was going to be a water shortage and you wanted to be better prepared for that, but not get off into paranoia, you would say, hey, what are my possible solutions if there was a water shortage? A possible solution is simply to store up bottles, to buy as much as you can and store them, bottled water, jugged water, or bigger solutions like this water behind me. Another possible solution would be a complete off-grid solar well solution. And so you take the time and you not only identify the problem, but you evaluate the possible solutions to that problem. So that's step number 1, identify and evaluate. And let me know what you think about step number 1. Let me know where you've identified and evaluated, and let me know about your water solutions. We'll talk about more of that in the future. But if you're worried about water shortage, what are you doing to become water independent? Now let's go on to step number 2. Step number 2 is now to learn about the possible solutions. So step number 2 is learn. First we identify and evaluate, and then we learn about the possible solutions. So let's say you want to become more food independent, and you notice the food shortages out there, or maybe you just want to stop and cut the costs, bring the cost down for you and bring the cost down for your family. Or maybe you're worried there may not be enough food in the future, and so you want to become food independent. You want to grow and raise your own foods to provide for you and to provide for your family and hopefully to help your neighbors. So you have to learn about that. And when I approach the learning portion of it, it is a time and cost relative proposition. What I mean by that is, if it's a big project and I'm going to put a lot of money into, say, chicken coops or raising chickens, and predator control and all the things that go with raising animals, I want to make sure I spend enough time in the learning process to figure out as much as I can before I actually move on to step number 3. And so I take a good bit of time on a big project. If it's a small project, like say this little solar fan that I rig up just to carry around where I can have some cool air blowing on me while I'm on different areas in the property, I don't take much time in learning about that. I just find a solution for it, simple solution. I still learn about it, the best I can because I want to spend my resources wisely. And then I move on to step number 3. So with step number 2, you want to spend the appropriate time in relation to the cost. If you're going to spend a lot of money, say, on setting up a solar well system, it's going to cost you right now at the shooting of this video for a deep well to run it somewhere in the neighborhood of $4,000 to $6,000 or beyond, just depending on the setup you need and the inrush current that's present at your deep well pump to overcome that. And that's a topic for a future video, but you get what I'm saying. You want to spend enough time in learning about the possible solutions in relation to the amount of money, time, or resources you're going to spend to implement that solution. So that brings us on to step number 3, implementation. We're going to leave the baby chicks for a second and we'll go see the big chickens. So after you've identified and evaluated and you've moved on to step 2, and you've done your due diligence and you've researched it, put in the proper time versus cost in learning about the possible solutions out there, then you decide on one and you implement it. So that's step number 3, implementation. Take action. And this is one of the most important steps. You don't want to be one of those people that gets stuck in that endless loop of constantly thinking and constantly thinking. Now, don't get me wrong. When it's a big item, a big purchase, a life-changing financial decision, that you're gonna, like I said, ramp up and buy a huge solar solution for your home, you want to take your time and do your due diligence. But don't get stuck in the endless cycle and never implement a solution for the problem. You have to take steps to implement it. And sometimes that's gathering enough information and doing like you were when you're a kid. You study for a test at school. If you study for the test at school, I didn't study for very many tests, but if you studied for that test at school, at some point you had to say, hey, that's enough study. Time to take the test. And that's where implementation comes in. You actually decide on one of your solutions that you've researched. You go ahead and get the necessary items for it. You go ahead and you build that coop with that lumber. You get the nest boxes, you get the perches, you get if you're gonna have a mobile coop, you get the mobile solution that you're gonna make it mobile. You put the money out there for predator control and what you're gonna use to protect them. And you get the idea. You go ahead and you actually implement and do it. And that's one of the most fun parts of the plan is step 3, implementation. But let's move on to step number 4. Once you implement in step 3, you wait a while and you see how it works for you. And then you move on to step number 4, which is simply reevaluate. You look at the solution you put in place and you make little tweaks and little changes to make it work better. I want to give you an example. We bought 3 of the little goats you can see here, and then we have 1 big goat. The big goat we used for milk. We didn't have her initially. We weren't thinking about milking a goat initially. We were actually just getting them to clear out the fence lines. And so we bought some of the cuter little Nigerian dwarf goats, as you can see. And there was at one point where I didn't wait long enough in the evaluation process because I wanted them to clear fence lines. And I didn't think they were doing a good enough job. But the thing was, they were too small. And they were too little and they weren't eating enough. But as they grew and they stayed in that spot just a little longer, they did a fantastic job. And as you can see behind me, they're clearing out some old areas that we needed to get the fence line cleared out around, and old structures and things like that. And so then we added in a milk goat. And my wife learned to milk that goat, and now that's all we drink is the goat milk. And it's become a wonderful addition to reducing our costs and becoming more self-sufficient in the way of food. So reevaluate is step number 4, and along with step number 4 is change if necessary. If it's working, hey, you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it isn't working, evaluate it, reevaluate it, and change it along the way, and then you'll come up with that solution that works for you and accomplishes the goals that you want to accomplish. All right, I'm back in front of my little solar fan now. Thanks for going with me on that tour. Step number 5 to end the video is simply repeat. It's the old shampoo theory. You wash, you rinse, and then you repeat if necessary. And so that's what you do to approach all of the issues of life to keep you from paranoia, but keep you prepared. That's the difference, planning and proper planning. So I hope this 5-step plan helps you. Let me recap for you. It's simply step number 1 is identify and evaluate. Step number 2 is simply to learn about the possible solutions after you identify the problem. Step number 3, once you're finished learning, is to implement one of those solutions as you've made the choice that fits you, fits your budget, and fits your resources. And then step number 4 is to reevaluate to make sure that solution is working well for you. And if it isn't working well for you, or if it's only partially working well for you, you go ahead and make some changes. And then step number 5 is to repeat that in all the issues of life or all the things you want to accomplish to make yourself more self-sufficient. And leave a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you would change about that plan. Let me know what you think of the plan. Let me know how you plan and go about keeping yourself from paranoia. There's a lot of things out there in the news media that can make us anxious or get us worried. But we need to stay calm and have an assurance of the future. And you do that by proper planning. So thanks for watching today. I've got work to do. I know you've got work to do. If you would, to help out the channel, please like this video and subscribe to our channel and hit that bell notification so that you get notified of any future videos that we might make that will help you. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. God bless you and yours.